This is Leslie Mitchell-Clarke of Contact TV, and we are here live from Alien Cosmic Expo in Toronto, and my guest is Grant Cameron, who I've known for a long time. Grant, how are you?
I'm just doing fine, Leslie. Thanks for spending time with me to talk.
I'm so pleased, and you've been a guest on our show,
Yes.
many times, and I guess I should sort of ask you, because you're always doing new things, you're always exploring new things. What now is on your dance card? What is the thing that is really capturing your attention right now?
I'm always doing disclosure, which I call the rat hole, but I'm doing the consciousness, which is the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And I have a new witness. We haven't, he's coming forward. He's from Malibu, California. He's a high-level Hollywood producer, musical guy, connected to one of the most powerful people in the United States. And he is a full-blown experiencer. He contacted me. He's had experiences for 8 months.
Wow.
He's got stuff over the house, in the house.
In Malibu?
In
Grant?
Malibu.
Uh-huh.
And when he first contacted me, I guess about 6 months ago, I said to him, his first name is Chris. I said, it appears they're trying to contact you. You should try to talk to them. And so he started to make an effort to talk to them. So what he said, if this is an alien or whatever this is, put something in my head I don't know. And he said in his voice, in his head, the word biocentrics came out. And he went, so he went, what is that? And he went home and he Googled it. And it's basically a book written by Dr. Robert Lanza. He's considered the New York Times called him one of the top 3 scientists in the world.
Indeed, yes.
He's a biologist. He's the first guy to clone an extinct species. Very, very powerful guy. Wrote a book called Biocentrics, and basically it's almost like the holographic universe. Basically says biology is the basis. So life creates the universe, not the other way around. Consciousness is primary. There's no time, there's no space, and he writes this book called Biocentrics. Then he wrote a second book called Beyond Biocentrics, with his co-author, and his co-author had a samadhi experience. The oneness, everything's connected, everything's alive, that whole experience. So he wrote it with, I think the guy's name was Berman, the co-author. So my friend Chris had gotten this message. He's dealing with this direct contact with this being. He's talking to him, and basically they said, "You've got to do something. You've got a mission. You've got to do something." So he's doing a documentary on biocentrics, and when that happens, he has no choice. He'd be public as to who he is. But he contacted Dr. Robert Lanza, and he said to him, what the hell? I'll just throw it on the table. So
why not?
he leaves this long message.
Yeah.
I'm this guy, very powerful guy in Hollywood, mentions who he is, who his family is, and said, I've had this experience. This word came into my head. It's your term. I want to do a documentary. He's going to put all these high-level people, including one very high-level person in his family, who's going to deal not with UFOs but with the idea of consciousness.
But UFO Woodstock.
We approached this fellow to help us, and he said, and actually his wife actually works with some of these big, huge, I can't remember the name of it, it's big rock concerts that they have. It's the same sort of thing. It's and I'm thinking, this has got to be, meant to be.
Company that produces events. Is that what
all
you
the
mean?
Equipment for all these people,
like live.
And some of them are like the Foo Fighter drummers just come forward.
Yes, he has.
You have the Chili Peppers is out of this company, and he's talks about UFOs and destroying the ocean and all this sort of stuff. So you have these sort of things, and we figured, man, this worked really well until we got into the thing that the high-level people make so much money. The bottom ones, he said, were $5,000 to $10,000 a band for 2 days, and he would sell to around the world to Netflix, and he would raise the money. That's his job. He does this kind of stuff.
So it would be photographed professionally. So it would be packaged as a special that could then become available on subscription alternative television.
And you would also have the concert. So you'd have people out there at the concert, but it would have this theme of the fact that there's this consciousness connection to musicians. And that was the message I got from Chris Bledsoe, who gave me that, because I'm not a musician, I don't have any interest, I don't never listen to music. And Chris Bledsoe, this famous experiencer, had contacted me and said he had a message from the Guardians, where the people he was dealing with. And I said, well, what is it? And he said, well, the message is in the music. And I went, well, you may be talking to the wrong guy because I don't play music, I don't listen to music. And it was only because Neil Young, who grew up in my city, I live in Winnipeg, Manitoba,
That's
Canada,
right,
which is
you
the middle
did.
of nowhere.
Yeah, you're
Neil Young
from
grew
the
up there,
pig.
and that's where I got dragged into this. And so it was this synchronistic thing where I didn't want to be in music, and then suddenly, I've produced a book, and now we're looking at a second book, and suddenly we have this thing where we think we may be able to pull this thing off. So we're still looking at this thing of having this major concert with experiencers, and there's actually an album that has been put out by Joanne Summers out of England. I don't know if you've interviewed her, but she's got 20 experiencers on an album that have sung, and these are like, just ordinary. There's a couple of them here actually, Steve Boucher and a couple of these people that have had experiences and stuff, but she's got 20 of them. So it's almost like this thing has spiraled in the last couple of months, where suddenly there's an album, and we're looking at this UFO Woodstock, and my book is out, and
when it all lines up,
and it was the same idea was that the messages and the music, that these are very, very powerful people, that you may sing their lyrics and you really don't know what you're singing, but they are, people look up to these musicians and these bands and stuff, and once it becomes known that these people have had these experiences, and that they know what consciousness is about, they're right brain creative people, all that sort of stuff, that could be something that would really raise the consciousness of the world.
And their direction, their ability to communicate to certain demographics that might not necessarily be open to.
That was the whole Tom DeLonge thing. That was his pitch to the U.S. Defense Department. He said, you guys are trying to get the message out, you're not doing a good job. I've got all these young people, I've got the Facebook account, the Twitter, and the Instagram and stuff. You need me. And they basically agreed, yes. So that's why I believe they're going through him, is to get that message out to that demographic.
Why not? That seems totally logical. Well, that's exciting, Grant.
Beautiful.
And let me just, now you are one of the foremost experts, if not the foremost expert, on exactly what various presidents of the United States knew about the ET presence and when they knew it. This is a big thing. Now, I have to go into contemporary times right now, and I was incredibly amused when the so-called president of the United States, announced that he wanted now a space force. He wants a little ray gun. I think he wants his own little ray gun. But anyway, what do you think about this? Is somebody going to pull this buffoon aside and say, "Look, we already have this going on, and we've had it for since the 50s"?
See, what I was told, that he was briefed by Ron Pandolfi, a guy by the name of Mike Pillsbury, and James Woolsey, who was the CIA director for Bill Clinton. That was the briefing. And I think my impression when I heard that he had it, or that he was putting it, was that he gets the briefing, and you can learn that there are ETs or a higher force or intelligence
from
or
the
whatever.
briefing.
So it depends what your mindset is. So you and I would say, okay, let's invite them in. Maybe they've got answers. They're giving us a message of something, about the world, destroying the world, whatever. And he sees it completely different.
Oh yeah.
He sees it like we've got to
blow
fight
'em
these
up.
people. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we're going to dominate space. We're going to it always comes down. Everything is neutral, and it's how you spin it.
Your
And
perspective, I suppose.
And he's got this fear-based thing.
Yeah.
The Mexicans are murderers and
Oh
rapists.
my
The Canadians
God.
were bad guys
We're
now.
pinkos, liberal left-wing commie pinkos.
It's like everybody's an enemy, and
Yeah.
that's the way it works. And the military will go into that, because that's how you build your defense budget. Everybody's an enemy. You build it on fear.
He's trafficking
Whereas
in fear.
in the room here, we're building on love rather
and
than
positivity.
fear. Yeah.
Well, and that's why, unfortunately, people with a lack of information or lack of education or lack of IQ can be very easily manipulated with fear.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
exactly what he's banking on. Has there been any, and this is kind of an odd question, but I know you talk to so many people, have there been any communications, downloads or communications about why we have been at this particular time infected by this type of a presidency? Is it a culling? Are things going to get better? Did it happen so that we could expose the racist and narrow-minded people? I mean, this is a dangerous man.
Well, again, everything comes down to the way I look at the universe. It's not the demanding that the guy deal you certain cards. You're dealt certain cards. And almost like David Icke said, my greatest discoveries came in my darkest moments. So that's the way I look at it, is that we were sort of going asleep in the sort of the New Age community or the love community. And this has woken up this community.
Oh, you know
I mean,
it
everybody
has.
knows,
Yeah.
and you realize what you've lost and what
Yeah.
this is. And it's sort of, so it comes down to me is not what happens around me that affects me, like I'm a cork floating down a stream. It's I have to deal, and so I think the same with the rest of the UFO community or the consciousness community is now they're activated and they're more motivated now than there was, and maybe we needed this.
Maybe we needed
it's
to
the whole
wake up.
idea is
Yeah.
that if reincarnation is a fact, then this is all planned,
Yeah.
and we may have planned to come in at this particular time with this particular guy because that's what we need. We needed this guy to wake us up.
Maybe
Yeah.
so, but it sure would be nice to see the karmic wallop come down big time, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
We can hope for that. And one last question, Grant. Do you think that the beginning of, if you want to call it the secret space program or misdirected funds or the acquisition of ET technology, do you see what we live with now and the secrecy that continues on as being the legacy of Harry Truman?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, but actually before that, the way it started was World War II. They developed the secrecy, and most people don't realize that the classifications of secret, top secret, all that kind of stuff is under the President of the United States. It's
Under
not by
him.
law.
Yeah.
It's done by executive order. So the President is the one that hands out the security clearances. He doesn't have a security clearance. And what they learned in World War II is they developed like the proximity fuse and the atomic bomb and plastic explosives and jet engines, and it worked so well to keep it secret, to compartmentalize everything, and that's the way it works. So then you spin out that technology, then you go to the next technology, and that's, so they're not going to change that. And I don't see the classification is actually getting worse in terms of what they've got.
Yeah.
And so their justification would be, well, the reason you got GPS is because we built it in the military. The reason you got Teflon is because we built it in the military. And then they spin it out into private
Yeah.
industry. And because they have all the money, they have all the power.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to turn it around. Like people will say, for example, with the Tom DeLonge thing, it's called the Threat Identification Program, and they'll say, "Oh, this is terrible" and stuff. And I'm saying, you can bet your life they are going to militarize this.
Okay.
Absolutely, they probably militarized it already because that's the way the military thinks. That's how you get a defense budget. If you suddenly say there are no enemies, you no longer need a $675 billion defense
right.
budget. They have to promote this.
Yeah.
Everybody's an enemy. Everybody's be fearful.
Again,
fearful.
fear.
And people take their money and they'll throw
Yeah.
and they'll elect people like Donald Trump because he goes on fear, and fear works. And you may hate it, but it works. If you can get people scared and say, I'm the Messiah, people are going to cast their vote. And everybody plays the game. There's the two Messiahs. Which one do you think is the real Messiah? Which one?
Yeah.
And then once they get in there, it goes, oh man, he's not the Messiah. It's just a politician.
Yeah.
And then 4 years later, it's the same thing. Okay, now we need we're going to pick the Messiah again.
Yes.
And people are so easily manipulated because
Oh,
they're
they
manipulated
are.
by fear, and it's so easy to.
Yeah.
And that's the big problem I think with the administration you have right now is everybody, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, now know how to get the vote. Just scare people
Just
to
scare
death.
people to death.
Yep.
And isn't it interesting, that as you said, there is a polarization, but we have been woken up.
Yep.
No one is neutral now. And certainly, I think you would probably agree with me, Grant, that if the United States had a proper parliamentary system instead of their sort of hybrid system that
Yeah.
they have, then this wouldn't have been an issue.
Yeah.
He would have been out.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's the Americans, it's the power base, and that's what's happening.
Yeah.
Well, let us be a little optimistic, because
Yes.
I agree with you that these circumstances have arrived to challenge us and teach us and to show us the hidden racism that I personally was in denial of.
Yeah.
I said,
And
not
it-
in my country.
Yeah, it always comes down to, it's not what cards are dealt to you, it's how you play your cards.
Yeah.
You and I came into this world to do something.
Yeah.
All we have to do is figure out not what's happening out there.
Yeah.
What did I come into the world to do? And what's going to happen when I leave? You're just going to be asked one question: how did it work out? Because you planned it.
Yeah.
And the question, so the only thing you need to figure out is, what am I here to do, and am I doing it? And it really doesn't matter. It's almost like we manifested this. Why would I come at the time of Trump?
Yeah.
It must have come for a reason.
Yeah.
And so you look at it that way, and so everything that happens to you, you're playing off everything that happens to you, taking personal responsibility that you had part to do with this, that you
Yes.
chose this,
Yeah.
rather than saying I'm victim. And if
Well, we manifested it in some way,
Because the other option is to get rid of him and put somebody else in, but there's no Messiah. That's the
No,
whole point.
there is no
It's up to
Messiah.
us.
It's up to us.
You can't wait for, like people say in my lecture tomorrow, I'm going to talk about why the aliens are here, and a lot of people figure they're here to give us free energy and all this sort of stuff, and it's like, no, you're confusing aliens and the intelligence with Santa Claus. They're not here to bring us stuff. They're giving messages. They're messaging all the time, and yet people are waiting. Like, I need a new car. I need this. And we're into this materialistic world, which will probably come collapsing down, and that's where consciousness comes in. If consciousness is primary, which I say
it is,
then and you can see with quantum physics, with the people, the experiencers, that world is being eaten apart, that paradigm. And once that paradigm shifts to the fact that consciousness is primary, everything changes. Or the idea that it's a multiple life. If someone can prove that there's multiple lives, then it all changes. It's a completely new world. Linda Howe, come on, give us a hug on camera.
Linda Moulton Howe just walked in, and here she is, the beautiful Linda Moulton Howe.
There you go. Beautiful, Linda. Wonderful.
In the house. Is this the ballroom?
The ballroom is
down at the end there.
It's just at the end, Linda.
Yeah, okay, we'll see you later. Yeah.
Well, you never know what's going to happen at Alien Cosmic Expo. But Grant Cameron.
My assistant. My assistant. Come here. Get in here. Get in here. Get over here. Here.
Is this your assistant, Grant?
This is my assistant, Desta.
Hi, Desta.
She runs my Facebook. She runs my YouTube.
That's why you're up to date.
Yeah, that's right.
I thought, what happened to Grant? He got a download. He got some technology download. Some various programs went right in. I knew something had happened. I didn't know what.
You got your people working for you?
I got my people. I have to have my people.
That's right. And that's the thing is you sort of multiply people, sort of get encouraged. That's what Desta did. Is she wanted to contribute something, and she doesn't. She's not a lecturer or anything like that. So she's giving her contribution. She's doing the same thing I said.
Bless your heart,
is you got to
Desta.
figure out what you're supposed to do, and then am I doing something?
Yeah.
And when you do something, then you feel valuable, and you feel like you're actually
And
doing
do
something.
it. Contribute to the good vibes. Contribute
Yeah.
to the consciousness.
Beautiful.
And be open and be kind to people. Just be kind.
Yeah.
That can nullify any of the evils that we're dealing with right
The other
now.
thing with Desta is she's an intuitive, so she's actually written a book on her
Ooh.
downloads. So I always ask her, ask him this, ask him that.
Yeah.
So I've got an insight to
You
whatever
got
the
it all
intelligence-
going on, man. I thought it was dull in Winnipeg. I thought the best thing was the pierogies. They're pretty damn good, though.
They're good, yeah.
They're pretty damn good. Anyway, from Pierogi Central,
Beautiful.
we've got the wonderful
you.
Grant Cameron and Destina, and this is Leslie Mitchell-Clarke once again with Contact TV, live from Alien Cosmic Expo 2018, and we will see you soon. Thank you so much,
Beautiful.
you
Thank you
guys.
for your time and your
Okay,
interest. Thank
take
you.
care now. Alrighty.